Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy that you're all here joining us on this sunny, beautiful day in the greater Washington area. I want to talk a little bit about what it means to have Jewish life and a place of belonging for every single one of you who are on this call and out in the community. We start all of our education with an idea of where we want to go, right? So it's not what's happening in kindergarten, but what's happening in kindergarten or junior kindergarten or 6th grade or 9th grade to put us on a path for a lifetime of learning and growth and what kind of person we want to develop in our students. And to do that, we've developed a very intentional and thoughtful document called the Portrait of the Graduate. It has 6 pillars that all are, while they can stand alone, but they are all woven together, right? So you can't have an independent, creative, and critical thinker and develop those skills and attributes in a student without being a thoughtful and reflective person who can collaborate with others. So they all sort of link together in different ways. And the beauty of this is that every moment that the students are here at the school is linking up to one of these pillars and the sub bullet points that go under each of them. And that's how our curriculum is designed, and that's how the entire program is designed, so that we're very thoughtfully and intentionally developing within our students these stances or these habits of heart and habits of mind. And so there's independent, creative, and critical thinker, knowledgeable, engaged, and passionate Jew, which will be the focus for our conversation today, although as you'll see, they link beautifully to so many of these other ideals. Effective communicator, thoughtful and reflective collaborator, ethical, responsible, and compassionate global citizen, and focused and resilient individual. And if we dive down just a little bit on the focus for today, the pillar for today, Emma, if you could advance this one more slide, you'll see that this breaks down into all these other subparts. We really have a value of pluralism, and that means accepting, seeing, understanding, and getting to know people who believe and think differently than we do. And particularly in our world, the way it stands now, that could not be a more important skill. And we're starting at home. We're starting with our own family, with the Jewish people, with our own community here in DC. So really, we're looking to help our students learn to embrace difference, to learn from one another, to then make personal meaning, to read, explain, interpret, and understand for our own selves a wide range of Jewish sources. We want them to be functional in the Hebrew language, to have a personal connection, and also a nuanced understanding of Israel. And obviously we start with the love in the lower school, and we build to greater nuance and gray and, you know, holding different ideas that could be in tension with one another as the students get older and are prepared to maybe go off into college campuses where the conversation on Israel can be very challenging. To have a personal connection, though, with the land of Israel and really understand its history, people, and culture. We want students to be able to demonstrate a knowledge of Jewish history and literature and how it affects them and their own identity and their own sense of self and place in the world. We want them to be active builders in the Jewish community and in the Jewish world. And that can then, we see with our alumni, they build all sorts of communities out in the world because they've had practice and training here, and they know to focus on things that are important and meaningful. And we also want them to have the skills to engage in Jewish life wherever they go. And so with this, I want to introduce the wonderful group of educators that we have with us today who are coming to speak to you about this program and how it works through the entire program, from the lower school, the middle school, and the high school. And so I am passing the baton now to our lower school principal, Rabbi Matthew Bellis.
Thanks so much, Orna. Boker Tov. Good morning, everyone. This is it's a really unique opportunity for all of us to be joining together as representatives of all the different divisions to be able to speak about one topic to families that are interested in looking at our school, and to also have parents. So it's a joy just to be here, to be able to welcome you and to say good morning and share. So the first point that I wanted to share when it comes to the lower school and Jewish life and learning is the concept of joyful and personal Judaism. As you saw from the bullet points related to the element from our portrait of a graduate, we have an experiential element of our Jewish study and Jewish life, and obviously the academic element of our Judaism, Jewish living, and Jewish learning. And it is as a result of both of those, the experience of Jewish life in the school in so many different ways, and the experience of studying Judaism and really living it as part of experience here at the lower school, that our students really do fall in love with being Jewish and develop those first elements of a really strong Jewish identity. It's really important that we emphasize throughout this presentation the partnership that we have with our families. Everything that we do here in school, we want to be doing in partnership and in collaboration with our parents and guardians at home. Orna mentioned pluralism, and I just want to emphasize it again, that we work very hard to be a home, a comfortable and warm and safe and welcome home for families that come from all kinds of different Jewish affiliations and Jewish connections. And our program really emphasizes the importance of celebrating our differences and not trying to, at the end of the day, have one kind of Jew, one kind of graduate, one kind of student at the end of the day. It's really important that we celebrate all of the diversity that we have in the Jewish community. And I like to say that Charles E. Smith Jewish Day School is a microcosm of the Jewish world. Because we are so big as a day school and so diverse, our students have the opportunity to really experience what the big Jewish world is like. If someone is an observant and traditional Jew, they are welcome and feel at home here. If they're Israeli and their connection to Judaism is their Israeli identity and the fact that they live in Israel, they feel at home here. If someone is more liberal in terms of their practices of Judaism and attached to cultural elements of being Jewish or tikkun olam, they have a home here. And every single, all of our students and families interact and talk about what their approach to Judaism is, and our kids really have an amazing experience of that diversity and celebrating what the big Jewish world is like. Overall, our goal at the lower school is to provide a foundation for our students in traditional Jewish life and learning, traditional Jewish knowledge, so that as they grow and become more independent in terms of their thinking and critical thinking and identity development, they will have the knowledge and background to be able to make decisions about what they want their Judaism to look like in conversation with you, their families at home. But without that strong foundation in tradition, they won't be able to make those decisions and engage really personally in what Judaism and Jewish life means to them and what they want it to look like for them personally as they get older towards bar bat mitzvah and then adulthood. So Emma, we could move forward on the next slide. So the first, in the first bullet, before we talked about the academic and the experiential elements of Judaism and Jewish life here at the lower school. So this slide is focused primarily on the academic elements. We have different disciplines of Jewish study here at the lower school, which lead into the experience at middle and high school. The first I wanted to talk about is Torah Tanakh study. The Torah, the Bible, the Tanakh, is the foundational narrative of the Jewish people. It set us off for who we are. It's our history. It set the foundation for how it is that we live Jewish life and who we are as a Jewish people identity-wise. And so we engage with the text in a couple of different ways. Each and every week we study Parshat HaShavua. We study the Torah portion of the week. So students have an overall strong understanding of the flow and narrative of the Torah from start to finish throughout the school year. They engage in discussion of stories. They connect with the characters of the individuals who are living the Parshat HaShavua story and have opportunities to really take a takeaway lesson each and every week from the week's Torah portion. In addition, we study the different Torah portions as individual units of study, starting really even as early as kindergarten with in-depth conversation about the creation story. And then as they get older, they revisit the creation story, the Noah story, the narratives of Abraham, Sarah and their family, Isaac, Rebecca and their family, Jacob, Leah, Rachel, and their family, all the way through to the story of Egypt, the Exodus, etc. And we have in-depth units of study that allow our students to really dig into the language, to think thoughtfully about the meanings that they can take from it. And I wanted to talk just for a moment about our standards and benchmarks approach to Torah study, because it is unique. And it is research-based and really thoughtfully developed by administration and faculty here at the school. I remember when I was young, I didn't go to Jewish day school, but I studied the Torah portions in religious school myself, and it was really about how much Torah can I learn, right? How much text can I absorb into my brain? And how there really wasn't thoughtful engagement. It was really about breadth of study and not depth of study. The wonderful thing about the standards and benchmarks approach is that it partners beautifully with our Parshat HaShavua weekly Torah portion study and engages our students in really deep and thoughtful study of the individual Torah portions, where they do things like activities that allow them to engage with dilemmas that the characters in the Torah are facing, engage with the stories and how they connect to their own personal narrative and identity as a Jew. So there's this real depth of study that accompanies the breadth, and we're really proud of that approach to Torah and Tanakh here at the lower school. In terms of Shabbat, Chagim, and Tefillah, that's a little more about where the joyful element of study here at the lower school takes place. Our students study and celebrate Shabbat each and every week. We have units of study for each of the Jewish holidays, which spiral, so our students learn new information and in greater depth as they get older through the course of the school year. The foundation is, again, to provide the traditional knowledge and background for our students so that they really feel deeply knowledgeable and have that development of their Jewish identity through the mitzvot, customs, and history that are behind each and every holiday. And again, we want them to have that traditional foundation and then figure out the personal elements themselves. Which are the parts of the holidays, the parts of Shabbat that they and their families feel really connected to and make them feel joyful and connected to their Judaism, Jewish life, and Jewish identity. So Emma, we can go to the next slide. The final element of our disciplines of study at the lower school is Hebrew language. Orna alluded to it a little bit, but Hebrew language is not just a discipline of study, but it's also very strongly connected to our core value of Ahavat Yisrael, love of Israel. Just to make everyone aware, in the past month, we had 65 students who were celebrated as having achieved global biliteracy, which means that by the standards of language fluency, we had 65 students qualify for being officially bilingual in English and in Hebrew from a number of students that we had take the language proficiency exam, which is only offered in certain grade levels. So that was a huge achievement. Our school was the largest number of global biliteracy students out of anywhere actually in the world that took the exam in any single academic institution. We follow the proficiency model for instruction here throughout, not just lower school, but also middle school and high school, which allows our students to focus on the communicative language skills of listening comprehension, reading, writing, and speaking. Just by example of our 65 fluent global biliteracy students, obviously our program is very, very strong and we're very proud of it. Our students develop a comforting connection to the Hebrew language as the language of the Jewish people, the modern Hebrew, Hebrew that they can find in the Siddur so that they can understand when they're participating in tefillah and prayer, and the Hebrew that they find in the Bible. So all three of those different styles of Hebrew language. And finally, again, just in connection to our study of Hebrew language and our core value of Ahavat Yisrael, Hebrew is really a means for our students to develop a connection to the land of Israel, the people of Israel, and their peers who are here at the lower school, who come from Israel with their families. We have many families here at the lower school whose parents work at the embassy or are other either shlichim, emissaries, and our students form really strong connections with them, and it's an opportunity for them to use their Hebrew language in a really organic and beautiful way. So that was I could go on and on, but we have lots of other people who are here to present. What I wanted to share next as a transition out of talking about lower school and Jewish life and into middle school and Jewish life is we have two clips of our whole school Kabbalat Shabbat that we wanted to share because words are one thing, but actually seeing it, right? A picture is worth 1,000 words and a video is probably worth 1,000,000. So we have two quick clips from our whole school Kabbalat Shabbat where our entire school joins together. Right now it's in hybrid. We have half of our students in the gym sitting physically distanced and half of the students who join on Zoom, where we have an opportunity both to, as I talked about, teach about Parshat HaShavua, which I do each and every week, and incorporate Hebrew language, singing, Jewish life into a communal celebration of Shabbat, which we do every month. So Emma, you can click the first video. It's me. I'm sorry. It's an example of how we incorporate Parshat HaShavua study into whole school Kabbalah Shabbat, and the second video is student leader introducing and then the school joining in the singing of one of the Kabbalah Shabbat psalms.
It is the Shabbat of the poem, the Shabbat of the song. Fourth graders, I think some of you are starting with your poetry, writing, reading, and study right now, right? Thumbs up, thank you so much for that, right? So there are a few poems that appear in the Torah, and they are actually printed in a very special way by the Sofer Stam. They don't look like the text in any other part of the Torah scroll. They're written in poetic, it's not really, poetic verse is the wrong way to say it, but if you look at the Torah scroll inside, the lines are separated so that you can tell that it's a different genre, a different style, a different form of writing.
Many congregations begin Kabbalah Shabbat with Yedid Nefesh. The poet talks about his intense love for God. As we begin our Shabbat, we also hope to feel this love for God. Please stay seated and sing Yedid Nefesh with us.
And Rebecca will be leading.
Great, and now we move up to the upper school, and I am pleased to introduce Rabbi Derek Rosenbaum to get us started with middle school Jewish text.
Hi, Boker Tov. Good morning, everyone. It's so great to be here and to introduce the middle school to and beginning the upper school for everyone who's visiting. So you see here, there are three statements. One is who am I? The other is community. And then the third is leadership. And this explains the overall theme for each year of the middle school, from 6th grade, who am I, to 7th grade, finding yourself within the community, and then 8th grade, taking action, taking leadership roles. And this really guides and infuses the nature of our text study in the middle school. Emma, you can switch to the next slide, please. So here we are. I'm wearing a mask because we're all in a room together, but you can see my face there. And this is our faculty in the middle school. We've been here for a number of years together. It's a wonderful, wonderful group that collaborates so beautifully. Emma, you can switch to the next. Okay, so these are our goals in the middle school. One is to develop our text skills. So we're looking at text, be it Tanakh or Mishnah or Gemara texts in the original. And it's we really know that students are coming in different levels. So we differentiate for students who do need some support, some like kind of on-ramps in order to engage with the text in the original. So there is support in English as well. And it's depending on the groups, some groups use those English supports more than others. We're looking to deepen critical thinking and analytical skills in the middle school, as is developmentally appropriate. Students are like thinking really like deep questions and about the text, and we're trying to get them to engage in a variety of ways, and to see that there are many lenses through which we can engage with text and make meaning out of text. Middle school, whenever I tell people I teach middle school, they're like, whoa, good luck, you know, hang in there. And so our students have, you know, like very, very, you know, unique social emotional needs, and we take that into consideration in how we teach. We're often looking at the humanity in the characters and the narratives that we're engaging with, or the rabbis and where they're coming from in the Torah Sheba'al Peh and the oral law, and trying to understand like what motivates certain texts to be written, to be spoken about, to be discussed. And we're looking to build real word connections, meaning making, as I mentioned before, trying to have students to connect in some way in a variety of ways to the learning. Thanks, Emma. You can move to the next slide. So in the middle school, we structure our Jewish text in terms of Tanakh and Toshva. Tanakh is the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. It's our written text, our written law. And just so you can see what the text that we cover in 6th grade, we look at the range of the Chumash, the Torah. We do a kind of a span through those kind of key stories, but look at them anew, looking at the text, and then also using commentaries. And then we journey into the book of prophets in Joshua. That continues in 7th grade, where we pick up where we left off with the books of Judges and the first book of Samuel. We're getting into trying to find leaders, trying to develop community, and then eventually getting to the first king of Israel, King Saul. And then in 8th grade, that narrative, that saga continues in finishing up the first book of Samuel and getting into the 2nd book of Samuel. And that year is largely about David, who eventually becomes king of Israel. As you can see, there are 2 options in middle school Tanakh. For 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. They are, one is just English language instruction, although we do look at the text in the original. And then there is Ivrit Be'Ivrit, so the course is taught in Hebrew. Students can choose to answer in Hebrew and or English. And then our last slide, Emma, thank you. And then there's Toshva, Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral law. This is looking at the later texts of Mishnah and Gemara, you know, several thousand years old. And we are looking to form connections to understand that the rabbis were grappling with issues that we also grapple with today, and in fact, have so much wisdom for us to live by. So we're looking at the text in 6th grade of Mishnah, and then in 7th grade, we expand out and we look more at texts of Mishnah and also the Gemara, the Talmud, and you can see it's theme-based in 6th grade and as well as 7th grade. And then in 8th grade, there are 2 course options. One is to choose Jewish identities, to explore various ways to express oneself Jewishly as they are becoming adults. And then there's Talmud, like a deep dive into Talmud, and into a page of Gemara, and that continues into high school, which is where we're going to head after. What's that? Oh, you're not next? Oh, okay. I'll let Emma do the emceeing then. Sorry.
Great, thank you, Rabbi Rosenbaum. Let's switch over to Jewish life that exists outside the classroom. And you gave a great introduction of what happens in the classroom. And I will switch it over now to Dr. Jen Neufeld, who is our chair of Jewish life in the middle school.
Good morning. As Emma said, I'm Jennifer Neufeld, and I am a text teacher as well as the chair of Jewish life in the middle school. This is a new position in our middle school. This is the first year we've had a chair of Jewish life, and we are super excited to be able to think about how do we bring everything the students are learning in the classroom and everything they are learning at home, and how do we have that infused through the hallways in exciting and engaging ways. So we do a variety of stuff already. We talk about our Jewish values. The theme, the whole middle school is built around this theme of I know myself, which is individual identity in 6th grade, in order to understand my community, which is the focus of 7th grade, and so that I can impact the world in 8th grade. And we infuse values and teaching values on those different themes throughout so many different areas of the day. For each holiday, we do engaging celebrations that are really fun and educational. So we had a Tu B'Shvat scavenger hunt a few weeks ago where the students were running through the schools, learning about taking care of nature through this scavenger hunt and pretending to dance like trees. We celebrate Jewish culture. We have one morning a week where we focus on different parts of Jewish culture, everything from Judaism and comic book character creation to how communities are developed and what things do Jewish communities, what buildings and institutions do Jewish communities need. And we really spend time helping the students gain a deeper understanding of the school's commitment, as well as the family's commitment of everyone who's here to be part of a pluralistic Jewish community. And how can we stay strong in our beliefs and deeply respectful of other people's beliefs who share our space with us. Emma, would you like to switch the slide? Every morning, all of our middle school students start off their day in a wholly reflective communal space. It's really important that they're starting off with a community. It kind of sets the tone of the day. It gives middle schoolers a little bit of a grounding of where they're starting and beginning. And during Zman Kodesh, our holy time, the majority of 6th graders have a class called Prayer and Personal Connection. They work on learning the Shachrit service, as well as discussions on connection to God and to Jewish communities. In 7th and 8th grade, our students have a lot of choice of how they would like to spend this time. We offer 5 different options. 4 are more prayer-based options, and 1 is a non-prayer-based option. And then once a month, we have a women's Rosh Chodesh Tefillah service that women in the middle school can opt into. So we have a variety of prayer spaces. There is 2 mechitza spaces, 1 Ashkenazi, 1 Sephardi. We have an egalitarian Masorti service. We have Derech Tefillah, where students are learning about and continuing their development of concepts of prayer. And for the 8th graders, they have an option of a Jewish Journeys, which is more based on Jewish culture than specifically prayer. And one of the highlights of our week is our middle school Shab. So every Friday, the whole middle school comes together. You can hear this shout throughout the school. It's almost Shabbos. It's time for Shabbos. Our students get super excited. And it's a combination of, we share some words of Torah. There's always a Devar Torah, but we also have opportunities for students to perform and to be spotlighted for their incredible abilities. Amazing musical performances, martial arts performances. Sometimes if a group of students is doing a special project, they may put together a presentation about what they're doing. We share out some hakarat hatov, some like good wishes to good things happening in our community. And we've also developed a number of games that the students have really enjoyed, that we play these little games for a few minutes as an entire community, and it just really builds the spirit and the energy and our community connections to get ready for Shabbos.
Thank you, Dr. Neufeld. We are going to move on to Debbie Stillman. Debbie is an alumna of JDS. She also is the proud parent of Maddie, who's in 8th grade, and Adam, who's in 5th grade. And we asked her here just to share some words as a parent, from a parent's perspective. Debbie.
Great, thanks so much. Can everybody hear me, I hope? I think I unmuted myself. So happy to connect with folks and happy to take any questions if you want to know anything about what it's like to be a parent at the school. I know when my family was making this decision for my kids, even though I'm an alum, I had a ton of questions and sort of wanted to know, what is it really like? And I have to say, sort of hearing the presentations by the faculty we just heard from, that's what it's really like. You know, it's a very accurate presentation of what our school looks like. As Dory mentioned, I'm an alum. I graduated in 1995. I was a lifer at the school, was there K through 12. So my family's been involved in the school since 1980. JDS really defined and helped me build my Jewish life and my love of Israel. And I'm so proud to have the opportunity to infuse that into my kids' journeys to becoming Jewish adults as well. I want to tell you just a couple examples of things that that I really noticed that have stood out to me with my kids over the last number of years that I think might speak to you. In kindergarten, you know how kids are always like humming and singing little songs that they learn. My kids were humming and singing tefillot and prayers and Israeli songs. So we'd be driving in the car and they're in the back seat and I would listen to them, you know, sort of doing a little, you know, Yerushalayim Shel Zahav or some other song. And it just warmed my heart that that was what they were taking away. And in second grade, they did their first of our Torah. And I'm a pretty emotional person, but I was really emotional listening to them really take what they were learning about the Parsha and build it into something where they were presenting to others and teaching about it. It was really a beautiful experience. And in fifth grade, they learned Torah trope and they learned the Torah service. My son, Maddie, was among the first 3 kids in his grade to read Torah and was really reflective of a confidence that he built around it. And so in 7th grade, when he had his bar mitzvah, you know, one of the things that was so incredible to us was that he to learn his Torah portion quickly and easily. And he decided to take on quite a bit more, leading the whole Torah service, leading Shachri, and really throwing himself into the experience because he had that really deep knowledge base. We personally are active members of both the JDS community and B'nai Israel, which is the conservative synagogue right behind the school, sorry. But what I can tell you is that we feel comfortable in any Jewish environment. So if we could walk into an Orthodox shul, a Reform temple, a conservative shul, you know, a cultural Jewish place, and we feel comfortable because our family has had those experiences. Our kids have those friends. We have those friends. It's very natural and part of the experience of being in a pluralistic Jewish day school. My younger son, Adam, just had his visit to the upper school last Friday. I'm excited for him to join my older son there soon. In the middle school, what I've really seen with Maddie is just tremendous growth, confidence, pride in being Jewish, a deeper understanding of Tanakh and really becoming a critical thinker, really knowing how to question and how to go deeper and not just take everything at the surface. You know, in lower school, there's a lot of information that you're learning basics. And in middle school, what I've noticed is that it's really an opportunity for the kids to begin to do their own thinking about these topics. One question that I've always gotten from families who aren't part of the school or don't have the experience that I did is, but I don't speak Hebrew. How can I send my kid to a school where they're going to learn Hebrew and I can't help them? And I can tell you from experience, the parents at the school range from native Hebrew speakers, Israeli families, to those like me who read and understand and can speak Hebrew because of Jewish education, to those who have no Hebrew whatsoever and take so much pride in seeing their kids learn it and often bring it home. And, and then the parents get more involved and want to understand and learn what the kids are learning. So whatever works for your family, there's a place for you at JDS. And I'll tell you with the kids too, you know, the way that they learn really ranges. For my older son, Maddie, Hebrew came to him extremely naturally. And he's, you know, he's in a very high level Hebrew class in middle school, and he loves it, and it's very comfortable. For Adam, language acquisition has been a lot harder. And the school has built that scaffolding that he's needed to be able to acquire Hebrew language, but to do so at a pace that works for him. And that to me meant so much, knowing that, you know, my kids are really different kinds of learners, and the school was able to not only accommodate them, but to help them to thrive. You know, I love that you guys got to see a quick video and picture of Cobb Shab. I was going to say, if you haven't, you know, dropped in on a Cobb Shab, it's very different, obviously, now versus a couple of years ago, you know, before COVID. But seeing the Kabbalat Shabbat program in the lower school or the Cobb Shab in the middle school, if you go to that, you know, you're going to sign on the dotted line. It is such a beautiful experience to see these kids together, celebrating Shabbat, celebrating each other and each other's leadership and talents, and the sense of community. It's a wonderful way to sort of show that JDS goes beyond just the basics of teaching the topics to really building a community. And that's very much been my family's experience at the school. I'm excited for my kids to continue on and to, you know, to continue to learn and grow. And I hope your kids will join us and be part of the experience.
Thank you, Debbie. I'm going to turn it over to Miss Grace McMillan, who's going to talk about the high school Jewish text experience.
Hi, welcome. And when Debbie was speaking about that transition from lower school to middle school, where kids really start taking hold of their own tradition, that is something we absolutely continue in high school, where our focus, whether it's in the Tanakh curriculum, the Toshba, again, the rabbinic Torah Shabbal Peh, which I'll talk about in a minute, or the Jewish history, which I'm also going to cover in a minute, all three of these different curricula are all about finding ways for each individual child to connect Jewish tradition for themselves in meaningful ways. In the Jewish text classes, in the Tanakh classes and the Toshba classes, we really, and you can see the selections, I'm not going to read the selections on the screen, but you can see them there. We have courses that really are designed for a wide range of students who have strong Hebrew, students whose Hebrew is weaker, students who are somewhere in the middle. We try to push them a little bit, but also meet them where they are and bring them into the text, bring them into a variety of different texts with a variety of different approaches. We've got the intellectual rigor, where we're really trying to bring approaches that connect with their history classes and connect with their English classes for the intellectual depth that's really appropriate for high school. Many of these classes are run sort of like college classes and Bible college classes, but with a very strong Jewish grounding and Jewish tradition and a sense of, these are my texts and how do I connect to them and find meaning in them. You will see on the next slide, there we go, that for the Toshba, we've got 2 tracks. Students can choose to do Talmud study. They might have started in middle school, but if they weren't quite ready for that in middle school and decide in 9th grade, I really want to study Talmud, which is very, very intense text study, they can take that approach and do the really deep textual study. Or if they really are interested in ideas, really interested in the conceptual approaches, might not want to like take out a Masechet of Gemara, a big heavy book, but they want to dig into the textual tradition with a more philosophical approach. We have lots and lots and lots of approaches, classes for them that they can choose from throughout their high school experience. Then we also have Jewish history. I'm on the next slide. The Jewish history department, similar to the Jewish text department, the Jewish history department very much takes an academic approach with that deep Jewish understanding of, how is this tradition my tradition here? How is this history my history? The wide range, they have required courses that go from the ancient period to modern Israel. And then they have distribution choices that kids in the upper school can choose there, you can see. But again, they're very much aligned with the history department in terms of their intellectual rigor, and very much in terms of, this is my history. This is really specifically my history, and where do I find myself in that? So that is the Judaics programs in the high school.
Thank you, Ms. McMillan. I will now hand it over to Mr. Brett Kugler, who is going to share about how Zaman Kodesh transgresses from the middle school into the high school.
Thank you so much. So if it has not been entirely clear, we are a school that very much values pluralism and opportunities for growth and exploration. And so as you've heard in elementary and up through middle and into high school, as they get further along, we give the students more opportunities and more options to empower them to find out who they are as Jews in our community and to be comfortable in any community moving out past the walls of JDS as they matriculate out into the world. And so our goal is really to give them as many options as possible, to give them as many avenues to explore that sense of spirituality and find that Kodesh in their Zman every morning. So when you get into the high school, we have 11 different daily options for the different students to choose from. There's 5 prayer-based and 6 non-prayer-based or drisha options. As mentioned in the middle school, there's a monthly women's Rosh Chodesh Tefillah. We have several different options where the middle and high school students come together and are able to be in the same space, and for our middle schoolers to see these high schoolers as role models, modeling what we hope for them to be able to learn and gain as they move into the world, as well as incredible amounts of opportunity for them to take on leadership roles. The wide array of programming that we offer ranges both in terms of practice and having a partnership minyan, a Masorti or egalitarian minyan, derech tefillah, machitza, Ashkenazi, and Sephardi. So it also touches on different parts of Jewish culture depending on where you are in the world. Each of these opportunities, some have been here for a long time. We've also added new opportunities. This year, we are looking at adding new opportunities next year, and we never settle. We're always looking to better our program, to strengthen it, and to find ways that we can help our students to connect in what they're doing. We also have options that allow for some text-based prayer on some days, and other days have experiential options so that they can kind of pick both opportunities up. There's really a wide array. And if we turn to the next slide, I just put together a few snapshots of what our tefillah service and prayer and experiential opportunities look like. You see in here leadership from partnership minyan. You see leadership in leading in a prayer service. We just had Rosh Chodesh for 2 days this week, and our yoga and mindfulness minyan did moon pose and learned about the phases of the moon as they were exploring both Rosh Chodesh and their spirituality. In our arts and exploration, they're currently preparing for Purim by creating a 10-panel exploration of Megillat Esther, and each chapter is being done in micrography so that we can really understand the different pieces of the holidays. So we have both a text base in terms of prayer, we have an experiential base, and we have a lot of discussion going on that really helps them to have a better understanding of what is going on holistically in their Jewish world inside our school and what they can expect outside. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Kugler. I will now hand it over to Ms. Tori Ball.
Hi there, everyone. So as you've looked at sort of the experience holistically from, you know, the Gurim pre-kindergarten all the way up through high school, I think what runs throughout is that we want this to be a school where Jewish life is infused in joyful ways and in meaningful ways and in personal individual ways. We try to give a sense of spirit in the high school so that kids are connecting with Judaism in a joyful way, in a meaningful way, and most explicitly at the high school level so that they're cultivating their identities as leaders in the Jewish community. And so when we think about sort of the elements of the week and the elements of the year, at every level, every week we have Kabbalat Shabbat. And what's so powerful about that in the high school is that that is a student-led experience, that every week a member of our student community is getting up there and giving a Dvar Torah to the school community, talking about that week's Parsha and connecting it to the experience that they are having as adolescents in the school. Every grade in our high school goes on a Shabbaton. They go on a weekend retreat together, and that is a student-led, co-created, pluralistic experience. So when I think about our 9th grade Shabbaton just a couple months ago, it was this truly marvelous thing to witness, and that we had multiple services going on at any point in time that were student-led, that we had students leading a traditional Orthodox service, we had students leading an egalitarian service, and we had students leading meaningful discussion about how Judaism connected to them. And we had connections between the entire grade coming together and saying, what do we sort of share in our understanding of how Shabbat is meaningful to us? And what are the different ways that Shabbat connects to people? We try to have a whole lot of fun. We try to have holiday programming around things like Purim and Hanukkah, where the kids get up there and have a good time. And we also provide opportunities for student leadership with days throughout the year, such as Yom HaShoah, when our 10th grade sort of comes together to lead meaningful Holocaust programming. And then, well, how do we cap it all off? An incredibly unique attribute of the JDS education is that senior year, ooh, lots of things going on with the slides there. Senior year, the second semester, our seniors go on a capstone trip to Israel and Eastern Europe, and they're putting all of the education that they've had to this point into practice, that they're going to live in Israel and they are experiencing this history firsthand. They're experiencing the complexity of Israel firsthand, but they're really putting Ahavat Israel, like their love of Israel, into practice, and they're finding opportunities to really connect with their Jewish identity, to connect with their history, and most importantly, to connect with their Jewish community. What I think is so marvelous in the high school is that we have these students who have found their individual connections to Judaism, and that we're providing them with experiences to come together and say, what does it mean for me to be a part of a pluralistic community as an individual? I have my values, but I feel connected to these other Jews. And so I think to sort of cap this off and talk about this experience, we've invited two of our senior students here, two students who will be headed on this Israel trip in just a few short weeks, who incredibly enough, even though tonight is prom night, they've taken some time out of their day to talk to us a little bit about what their Jewish life at JDS has looked like. So I would like to invite Rochelle and Elion just to speak a little bit about when they think about this set of experiences they've had, what has stood out to them? Like, why has this been meaningful to you as Jews, as individuals, as members of a community?
Hi, everyone. My name is Rochelle, as Ms. Wall just said. I'm a recently finished with academics senior at JDS. So I think Elion and I wanted to touch on a few different aspects of Jewish life, similarly to what the teachers just talked about, but from a more student perspective. So something I wanted to start out with is the fact that from a pretty early age, students are able to choose which kind of Judaics classes they want to take. And because of that, the students that end up being in those different classes are really committed to learning that specific topic. Sometimes you'll see in more of the secular classes that students are required to take, that there are some students that are more interested than others in something like American history or something like that. But when it's specifically the Judaics classes at JDS, the students who are in the Talmud track want to be learning Talmud. The ones in the Jewish history classes want to be taking that course of Jewish history. And it makes the class come alive in a different way. So for example, last year, Elion and I were in a Talmud class together, and we had a pretty small class, and it was definitely an engaging experience, even though it was partially over Zoom. And we did one project where the page limit for our essay that we wrote together was 3 pages, but instead we ended up writing a 14-page essay about a story in the Talmud, and got lots of different commentaries and compiled lots of sources together in order to make a really big, bulky essay with a lot of analysis as well. And that's just one example of what happens when the students are really committed to the course that they're taking.
Hi, I'm Elion Topolowski. I'm also a senior, graduated recently, almost. And I also wanted to touch on ZK's Zman Kodesh that Mr. Kugler was talking about. Last year, I was since 10th grade when I came into the school. I've been a part of the Mechitza Minyan. It's the more traditional, like modern Orthodox style type of minyan with a Mechitza. And I took leadership in that minyan, and I very much enjoyed it. It was a good experience for me. And Rochelle was in the Masorti Minyan, also took a ton of leadership, leading services, reading the Torah, and things like that. But this year we had a special opportunity. Mr. Shore, one of our great advisors and a math teacher, very dear to our hearts, wanted to start the partnership minion, which was kind of like a middle ground for both of us. And it was just a different experience that Rochelle and I were both interested in, and we decided to join the minion. Even though we had less than a semester left when it started, and it was just like an amazing outlet to express our Judaism and feel connected in a different way that wasn't from our traditional backgrounds. So that has been really exciting. Rochelle, you want to talk about another thing?
Sure. So I think the example about partnership minion is just really important because students and faculty came together to create a new option of Zman Kodesh that did not exist before, and the school was receptive to our idea, and it ended up working out really, really well. So I guess the next thing I can talk about is a club that JDS has called the American Israeli Ambassador or American International Ambassadors Club. And this is about connecting the Israeli students and American students at JDS, just because we have such a big Israeli community at the school. And this goes into the Hebrew curriculum a little bit, just because what the club has noticed throughout its first year is that the connection between JDS students who are Israeli and American is Hebrew. And this year we ran a few classes where we had American students in some of the higher Hebrew levels and the students who are in the Israeli Hebrew levels to have joint classes. And they talked about community and they partnered up with each other, and the class was conducted completely in Hebrew. So all of the students were able to connect on that level, and it created some new connections between the American students and Israeli students at the school. And I think that just goes really well both into the value of Ahavat Yisrael and learning Hebrew and how important modern Hebrew is for Jews, and also what it means for us to be trying to have every student in the school feel represented and feel like they have a home at JDS.
Yeah, that was very well said. It was definitely, it was very beautiful, I think, for Rochelle and I to watch. We had just started the club just a few years ago, or last year, I think, and it like really picked up. We were able to do some fun events, but then to be able to do this meaningful project and lead these group classes for these students, it was just really beautiful to watch, and the teachers were so appreciative and the students were so grateful that they were able to make these connections, because a lot of the times these students feel like Hebrew is a language barrier between Israelis and Americans. Okay, Ms. Hart, would you like to continue?
No, go ahead and add your last thought on Shabbatonim.
Okay. Well, I was also, we were going to talk about how influential Shabbatonim have been for Rochelle and I. I think we didn't have the opportunity to go on a Shabbaton this year because of certain circumstances in COVID, but in the past, especially in our 10th grade Shabbaton, that's when I met a lot of my first friends. Yes, it was important socially, but also in terms of me being able to experience Judaism in a pluralistic environment. And there were different Zman Kodesh or davening opportunities for us. I remember distinctly that Rochelle was leading in the Masorti Minyan, and I was leading in the Mechitza Minyan, and our rooms were right next to each other. And when we were silent, we could hear the Masorti Minyan just like singing super loudly and super proudly. And then when they were quiet, we were super loud. And it was just so nice to hear. We were like back to back, even though we were doing something different. It was just so nice to be able to feel like we're still connected. And I also wanted to say one more thing. We were able to be madrichim, or chaperones, for the 9th grade Shabbaton this year, which was pretty amazing. Be able to sort of pass down our experiences and to the 9th graders. There was this moment in the Shabbaton, which was super special, I think, for Rochelle and I. Music is something that is very important to both of us, especially we believe it's something that really connects us in terms of our Judaism. And so during Shabbat afternoon, after one of the meals, we started to sing some Zmirot, some just Jewish classic songs that would be sung around a Shabbat table. And it just started, just the two of us, and then some other 9th graders joined, and then some other Madrichim joined, and soon the entire 9th grade class was in a circle around the table, arm in arm. Really, it was just so beautiful, just singing at the top of our lungs, really reached the heavens there. And yeah, it was just such a special moment to witness.
Thank you, Elion and Rochelle. I am thinking about these experiences that you've had, that you've led, that you've contributed, that you've created, and how this experience will then lead you into the world that is beyond JDS. Sorry to preview that for you, but there is a world beyond. So thank you. You are emblematic of being knowledgeable, engaged, passionate Jewish young adults.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. We're getting close to concluding our program, and we wanted to ask if anybody wanted to put any questions into the chat. We're happy to answer them. And Emma, if you don't mind moving to the next slide. While we're waiting to see if any questions come in, I just want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. I hope it was a productive hour of learning for you, and I want to encourage you to reach out to our admission team to have a conversation about your own family, your own questions, and to come for a visit if you haven't come to see the school in action yet. It's really worth your time. I also hope you'll join us for future events that are listed here. Powerful Middle School Experience talks about the distinctive attributes of that program that address a very unique time in childhood development and growth. A well-rounded education looks at our middle school and high school extracurricular and co-curricular programs, so that we are really, like, there are so many opportunities for students to jump into and develop themselves and find their passions. And then finally, in April, we have an event talking about pluralism and diversity at JDS, and it's really an incredible approach, and so thoughtful, the way that the school is addressing some of the most burning questions in our society today. We also want to encourage you to share what you've learned with your friends, encourage them to see if JDS might be a good fit for their families. This is an amazingly powerful and positive educational experience and community, and it's qualitatively different than other things that are out there. So we hope we'll see you again. Please let us know if you have any questions, and otherwise enjoy the rest of your day. All right.